Okay, greetings class. Today we are going to look at Russia 1812, the Expation, written by Victor Hugo. This is page 914 to 919 in your textbook. So get there. All right, so the introduction to this is Victor Hugo is the author. And Victor Hugo was a poet, a novelist, a dramatist. He was French. He was the son of a father who fought under Napoleon Bonaparte. So now we know in the French Revolution, we had the Revolution, and then we had the first Napoleon Bonaparte come in and basically destroy the revolution, make himself emperor. And then that kind of fell apart, and they kicked Napoleon out because he made some bad mistakes. And then there was a brief republic, and then a new emperor came in, and that was Napoleon Bonaparte III. Okay, so we've got all these Napoleons running around, but the Russia 1812 that we're going to read the excerpt from is written about the first Napoleon Bonaparte, the first emperor of France. Okay? So, like I said, he achieved artistic success. He wrote plays, stories, novels, poems. In 1831, he wrote a novel that I'm sure many of you saw as a Disney version, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He is the author of that. He's also the author of Les Miserables, and that is another brief period in the French history where, let's see, what is that, 1862, when there was another takeover in the government and the people were trying to reestablish a Republican government, and then that's the Paris Barricades. And of course, in today's modern parlance, we have turned it into a musical, right? So the musical Les Miserables, there you go, Victor Hugo, okay? Born out of political struggle, not born out of somebody sitting down and wanting to write a musical about it. The piece was already written. They took Les Miserables as a novel and created the musical. All right, so Russia 1812, what is going on here? This is where Napoleon made the first Napoleon, made one of his most tactical errors. And that is he failed to take into account the Russian winter. And Russians always know that their winter is long, hard, brutal, and usually is on their side. And Napoleon forgot to take that into account. And so we have Napoleon marching from France into Moscow. Okay, so that's a long way. And he starts out with 600,000 soldiers. And when they get there, they have discovered that, and he set out in June, okay, June. They've discovered, when they get there, they discovered that the Russians had already burned Moscow, burned the fields around Moscow, and slaughtered all the animals or taken all the animals. So there was no way that the army could grab food to feed their army. So they started to starve. And then the winter set in, because winter comes in September in Russia. Real winter, not just fake winter like we have now, but real winter, okay? And so Napoleon made the decision to turn around and retreat, because obviously they couldn't follow the Russian army farther because they knew they would get into snow and the Russian winter. So he turned them back and started to go back to France. Well, on the way, like I said, winter sets in, and long story short, that's where we're going with the poem. only 10,000 out of the 600,000 returned. And that was a huge blow for all the people that died. Two, it let the people back in France realize that this Napoleon guy might not be worth his salt. Maybe we need to get rid of him. And they did. They exiled him. So Victor Hugo, the author, the poet, was very politically active. And he wrote a lot of his works as political statements. Les Miserables is a definite political statement on the power of the people and to be able to speak for themselves. This one, the poem, is called the Expiation. Expiation means to make atonement, to make amends, to say I'm sorry and do something about it. And so it's a long poem, which we're only going to read one section, one little part of it. The first part sets up all the crimes for which Napoleon needs to ask forgiveness. And this terrible retreat from the Russians and the Russian winter is one of them. One of the things that Napoleon needs to ask forgiveness for. But in true fashion, at the end of every tragedy that Napoleon created here, he asks the powers that be, have I made atonement? What have I done yet? And he never gets an answer until the end of the poem, when the voice comes to him, and this is 30 years after Napoleon is dead. He turns over in his grave, and the atonement is the fact that the Napoleon Bonaparte, Louis Bonaparte, the third, is on the throne, and he's such a doofus and just a politically inept leader, that the fact that this person who knows really nothing has the name Napoleon Bonaparte, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, and that is the just desserts that Napoleon gets. So his good name is tarnished. So that's how Victor Hugo chose to end the novel. We're not going to get to that ending part. I just want you to know that that's where it goes. Okay? So now, what we're doing is narrative poetry, which means it's going to tell a story. And it may or may not rhyme, but it is still written as a poem, not as a novel. Okay? And as such, it has all of the elements of a story, right? It has plot, character, theme, rising action, falling action, And we're going to look at the setting. How does the setting influence the plot? How does the setting influence the characters? How does the setting influence the theme? Okay? So, as we begin, I'm going to read it and talk. So I am on page 916. Russia, 1812, from the Expation by Victor Hugo. It's translated from the French by Robert Lowell. The snow fell, and I want you to listen to all the snows, okay? Because you know when the snow falls, it falls, right? So snow. Listen to all the time the word snow is used. The snow fell, and its power was multiplied. For the first time, the eagle bowed its head. Dark days. Slowly, the emperor returned. Behind him, Moscow. Okay, so that is saying the winter's coming, the snow is falling. The power of the winter is getting stronger, it's multiplying. For the first time, the eagle bowed its head. That's the battle standard, the big eagle, like from the Roman days. You bring your standard into battle. The eagle bowed its head because, one, the snow's on it, and two, Napoleon is retreating. It says, dark days, slowly the emperor returned from Moscow, behind him. Moscow's behind him, France is in front of him. He's leaving in defeat. Napoleon does not leave battles in defeat. This is one of the first. All right, so onward. Behind him, Moscow. its onion domes still burned. That's a reference to the fact that the people who lived in Moscow set fire to their cities. They set fire to their city rather than letting the French take it. And the onion domes, that's referring to the domes on the Russian Orthodox Church that are shaped like onions. Really pretty domes. Okay. The snow rained down in blizzards, rained and froze. Past each white waste, a further white waste rose. None recognized the captains or the flags. Yesterday the grand army, today it's dregs. Dregs means the bottom of a cup, the yucky stuff down at the bottom. Don't drink the dregs, okay? Or sometimes people actually say, save the dregs for me. But anyway, it's the bottom, detritus, in the bottom of a cup. All right, the snow. The hurt men struggled from their ranks, hid in the bellies of a dead horse, in stacks of shattered caissons. So they're looking for warmth. And if the horses just died, the horse is warm. So if you cut up the belly of the dead horse and you crawl inside, you're going to be warm for a little bit till the blizzard comes and covers you both. And the caissons, that's just the wagon that holds the cannons and the artillery, a caisson. Okay, there's an army thing that says, when those caissons go rolling along, when those caissons, okay, so it's a wagon wheels that hold the artillery. All right, no one could tell the vanguards from the flanks. The vanguard's the first person, the flanks are the second layers of the army coming. We can't tell the difference. They're all scattered. Everybody's together. There's no organization here. All right. The hurt men struggled from their ranks. Okay, I did that one. In stacks of shattered caissons. By the bivouacs, one saw the picket dying at his post. A picket, that's the guy who stands guard, the one who stands guard. Still standing in his saddle, white with frost, the stone lips frozen to the bugle's mouth. So you get the idea of how intense this cold is, okay? And they're not making this up. People would just die of frostbite standing, okay? Bullets and grape shot mingled with the snow that hailed. The guard, surprised at shivering, marched in dreams now. Ice rhymes the gray mustache. The snow falls, always snow. The driving mire submerges men, trapped in that white empire. Have no more bread and march on barefoot. Gasps. There are no longer living men and troops, but a dream drifting in a fog, a mystery, mourners parading under the dark sky. The solitude, vast, terrible to the eye, was like a mute avenger everywhere. As snowfall floating through the quiet air buried the huge army in a huge shroud. Could anyone leave this kingdom? All right, that's just the first page. So, going back to the mood, right? Where's the mood that's setting the tone? The mood is what we are supposed to be feeling as readers. So Hugo's word choice. They were no longer living men and troops, but a dream drifting in a fog, a mystery. Mourners parading under the black sky. The vast solitude, terrible to the eye, was like, there's a simile, was like a mute avenger everywhere. An avenger is like a hero, somebody coming in to save the day. We have a mute one. There is nothing. The avenger can say nothing, do nothing. It's powerless. The avenger is powerless. Burying the huge army in a shroud. A shroud is a blanket that you wrap a dead person in. So shroud has a definite meaning of all of these people are dying. They're being wrapped in a white shroud blanket of snow. All right, going on. Could anyone leave this kingdom? A crowd, each man, obsessed with dying, was alone. Now that's irony, right? Could anyone leave the kingdom? That's a big place. The crowd, a big place. And then you go down to the little one. Each man was obsessed with dying alone. So that is a huge ironic contrast. The crowd, but within the crowd, every person, every soldier is obsessed with their own journey towards death, or their struggle to stay alive and beat their journey towards death. Men slept and died. They would just die in their sleep because they couldn't stay warm. The beaten mob sludged on, ditching its guns to burn cartridges. Two foes, the North, the Tsar. The North was worse. All right, so the men slept and died. The beaten mob sludged on. Fantastic verb, right? Sludged. And we're not just the soldiers moved on. The beaten mob, okay? So you've got, and a mob has no organization, right? It's supposed to be an army. It's supposed to be regulated. It's not. It's a beaten mob, and it's sludging onward, all right? They've ditched their guns to burn their cartridges. So what they've done is they've taken the bullets out of their rifles, and the bullets are in a paper cartridge, and you have to shove that inside the rifle. These are old style rifles. These are not automatic weapons like we have today that can, you know, just shoot like crazy. This, you've got to load this and then shoot it. All right. But it's in paper. So that paper, you could burn it and get heat. So the gunshot, the little balls in there, worthless, does not help one survive. But the paper does. So all of this scattered shot is around, but the paper is being burnt. All right. In the hollows where the snow was piling up, one saw whole regiments asleep. Attila's dawn, Cannae of Hannibal, the army marching to its funeral. Okay, we have some more historical references here. Attila's dawn, Attila the Hun in 1434 was fighting a battle in Hungary. And they fought through the night, and then they stopped. And when the dawn came, and Attila, the commander of the Huns, the Hungarians, that's where you get the word Hungarians, from the Huns. Okay, he sees that tons of the enemy have been slaughtered, and tons of his own soldiers have been slaughtered. He made the decision to retreat and to leave that battlefield and not fight to see who could win. He just left. He retreated. And then the other one we're talking about is Hannibal, the Cannae. That is a battle where Hannibal from Carthage, that's the top part of Africa, still on the edge of the Mediterranean Sea. So here's the Mediterranean Sea. Here's the top part of Africa. Here's Italy, okay? And so Italy and, oh my God, the top part of Africa. Carthage, yeah, Carthage, noun deficiency, sorry about that. Carthage, they were both, at this time, were rival enemies for power in the Mediterranean Sea. And so Hannibal is the one who marched his elephants through the Alps to go fight this battle. But before there's this other famous battle where he defeated a much larger Roman army, and the way he did it was by not fighting. He would supposedly get ready to fight and then retreat. So he kept drawing the Roman army in, and he kept drawing them and drawing them and drawing them in until the army was surrounded by two mountains. The Roman army was surrounded by two mountains, which left them no room for defeat. And then Hannibal's army came in and attacked from the front and the back and the top. and totally decimated the Roman army. Okay, so that was a brilliant strategy on Hannibal's part, okay? But that's what they're referring to here. Those two famous battles that have retreats in them as ways to either get out of the battle or to lure an enemy into a fight. All right, so then we're going on here. The army marching to its funeral. Litters, wounded, the dead, deserters. Swarm, crushing the bridges, down to cross a stream. They went to sleep 10,000, woke up 4. Ney, that's a general under Napoleon, Ney, N-E-Y, bringing up the former army's rear, hacked his horse loose from 3 disputing cassocks. Okay, that's where I'm going to stop. I stopped at the top of 9:18. Okay, that's enough. Otherwise, this video is going to get too long. All right, I'm going to read it now. Here we go. Russia, 1812. The snow fell, and its power was multiplied. For the first time, the eagle bowed its head. Dark days. Slowly, the empire returned. Behind him, Moscow. Its onion domes still burned. The snow rained down in blizzards, rained and froze. Past each white waste, a further white waste rose. None recognized the captains or the flags. Yesterday, the grand army. Today, its dregs. No one could tell the vanguard from the flanks. The snow! The hurt men struggled from their ranks, hid in the bellies of dead horse, in stacks of shattered caissons. By the bivouacs, one saw the picket dying at his post, still standing in his saddle, white with frost, the stone lips frozen to the bugler's mouth. Bullets and grape shot mingled with the snow that hailed. The guard, surprised at shivering, march in dreams now. Ice rhymes the gray mustache. The snow falls, always snow. The dying mire submerges men, trapped in the white empire. Have no more bread and march on barefoot, gasps. They were no longer living men and troops, but a dream drifting in a fog, a mystery. Mourners parading under the black sky. The solitude, vast, terrible to the eye, was like a mute avenger. Everywhere, a snowfall floating through the quiet air buried the huge army in a huge shroud. Could anyone leave this kingdom? A crowd, each man obsessed with dying, was alone. Men slept and died. The beaten mob sludged on, ditching the guns to burn their cartridges. 2 foes, the North, the Tsar. The North was worse. Its hollows where the snow was piling up, one saw whole regiments falling asleep. Attila's dawn, Cannae of Hannibal, the army marching to its funeral. Litters, wounded, the dead, deserters, swarm, crushing the bridge down to cross the stream. They went to sleep 10,000, woke up 4. Ney, bringing up the former army's rear, hacked his horse loose from 3 disputing Cossacks. And there we're going to stop. So just reread that section, take a look at the video, and then the work I set out for you for just that section of this excerpt, the Expation. Thank you. Bye-bye.